Salve Forth Paladins, and welcome back to another episode of Starfleet Command, Orion Pirates +1. I'm Fleet Admiral Tarek of the Dreadnought HMS Hurdle, as we continue our campaign against the Lyran Star Empire, and still, eternally it appears, on the hunt for a Monarch battleship carrier. One has not shown up in quite some time, and we've been looking for it pretty consistently. We've run into a couple of standard Monarch-class battleships, but the amount of firepower that they've got compared to the battleship carrier is just not all that convincing. So let us quickly patch up the ship. Took a little bit of damage, about 12 points, and oh yeah, we lost an entire squadron of fighters when we sent a teeth first into the enemy. However, the other fighters did manage to break quite a few things and set off into space to continue our siege of the Lyran homeworld itself. It stands there stands there a silent monument towards our enemy's hubris, and we shall tear it down. So, a straight-up homeworld assault for the first mission of the day, sticking ourselves right into the middle of it. Let us red alert and set all of our weapons to overload. We noted it's a pretty decent tactic, actually. Probably could get a little bit further had we just hung back and lobbed shells at people, but I like being able to crunch people open really quickly. It's very cathartic, especially against the Lyrans, who are supposed to be the ones who master the close-range combat, so I'm looking forward to doing stuff about that. Today we're being escorted by not HMS, but the Warlust, a Marak design, and the Death Howl. So the Marak coming in droves on this one, currently staring down was that a DNH? It was indeed a DNHEX, and I do believe there's another vessel off here, and this is a PLPH, an armored planet. So the homeworld has finally started to raise its defenses, and it will have no less than 8 disruptors, 8 phaser 4s, which are massively powerful, and 16 phaser 3s, not something you want to get all that close to. And the second vessel has finally showed himself up. He is a BCX, an advanced battlecruiser. Not a full advanced, but well, he's not a little X. He's a capital X, but there's a capital X suffix. So not a capital X prefix, which would mean death, destruction comes your way. So he'll be dangerous, especially with all of the Phaser X's that he's about to be carrying along with him, but he's not going to be outrageously so. That being said, we've only got medium cruisers around here, so he could probably cut through them pretty easily. The DNH, of course, is pretty much on par with us, and so we're going to have to be a little bit careful about actually engaging it. So let's start kicking up the speed. We're going to sap our shield budget a little bit so we can move a little bit quicker, get ourselves on target as soon as possible. Sort of want to get ahead of the medium cruisers just a little bit because they will get themselves killed, and we'd prefer that not to happen. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, they are Marak vessels and not ours, so it doesn't quite make a difference whether or not they survive, but at the same time, it does make us look a heck of a lot better if everybody survives the mission. With that being said, the Dreadnought has decided to turn in on another medium cruiser, and he's probably going to rip him asunder, which is not exactly great, especially because he's about to be in the middle of a whole heck of a lot of firepower. Lucky for us, they do not have missiles or guided weapons of any kind, so he's not going to randomly stop in the middle of space in order to avoid getting hit by a whole bunch of missiles. However, he is about to get pretty close to a whole bunch of Lyran vessels, and so that might not go super well for him. Nope, looks like he skirted around the back of that and lobbed a whole ton of missiles his way. Is this actually going to provoke a Wild Weasel response? It is? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness, he has activated his Wild Weasel defense shuttle, sacrificed all of his power. Those missiles literally couldn't even catch him. At least I think. I thought he was moving faster than the 16. Maybe not, but in any event, he's about to die. And he may have used several of his ESGs in an attempt to defend himself from that. So we may just have a free attack on him. He is holding quite a few missiles at this moment, and the Death Owl just continues to plow on even more. As long as his speed is broken like that. Oh, thank you, Death Owl, for opening up a shield for our Hellbores to do the serious work now. Fighters getting in there, laying into him with their heavy weapons. And yeah, they're just probably gonna cut right through him. We're kind of in range. Engage the heavy Hellbores. Well, they're not heavy Hellbores, but they are overloaded. And that was quite a bit of damage. All weapons engaged. Oh wow, that was an interesting protection measure. But he's kicked on another one. Let's see if we've managed to knock it offline. We haven't quite yet, but it looks like Death Howl took all of that. So we're turning steadily away. We hopefully can get this shield away in time. And we did. Also partially because he died. Let's see if we can't pull our fighters back and get them home before they die, because they are quite low at this point. They've been through quite a bit, and we'd like to get them back home for a little bit of rearm and refit. And with that in mind, please go away so that my fighters can come home unmolested. Aft shield is down, which is very unfortunate, especially because we're about to kill this guy, and he's in our aft arc. So I'm going to stagger the fire a little bit so so we can kill him as he comes around to our front arc. That way it protects our aft shields, which are non-existent at the moment. We have lost a Phaser X mount, which contained 2 Phaser X's, so let's patch the engine and get that under control. Target me, the BCX, his phasers just ripping into us over and over. Quite capable of doing all that he desires. Let's give him a little bit of fire back, and we want to start pulling away. Yes, this does mean exposing our back, but at the end of the day, we'd take a pretty nasty hit if we went right in for him. Drop a mine, see if we can't push him off our back a little bit. He is just having a free and easy time laying into us. We are preserving the forward shield, which will be somewhat important for actually sieging out the planet, should we survive that long, which I anticipate we will. We're doing actually not terribly. I mean, we did have to focus quite a bit of effort on their dreadnoughts, so I'm not super broken up about the current status of the ship at the moment. And there we go, able to knock it out using our hellbores. Should be able to get our other fusion cannons on target shortly. That's really laying into them. Keep patching the engines. We're losing a lot of systems. I'd like those Gatling phasers back as soon as you please, because there's quite a bit of firepower that we don't have with them offline. About to get another set of fusion cannons online. As long as he's in our stern spot, he's able to do quite a bit to us. Oh, come on. Open fire. I'm really hoping for the starboard side fusion cannon to get on target. Good, it's stunned quite heavily. There it goes. Finally gets to shoot. Keep patching the engine. We're taking a ton of damage on this one. This BCX is just laying into us quite efficiently. But how are my fighters? Are they ready to go? One squadron is, so get right on it. So we're going to dive them on top of them. That should tear them apart. I anticipate him dying very shortly because I trust my fighters completely and totally and relying on them quite heavily at the moment. Because we've lost most of our systems. We are incredibly close to dying. Patch the warp core, start pulling away a little bit. How about my other fighter squadron? Are you almost repaired and ready to go? Not yet. Fighters... Never mind. Taken care of. Lovely. Okay, stop the ship. Call the fighters home. Where is the target? There it is. So we now have to take on this planet, which is a fully powered planet, which is going to be kind of difficult at this point. So let's get the repairs underway. We have a lot to them to get done. Power systems are in okay shape. Not great. But they definitely need a little bit of love. So we're going to need our hellbores back online, so cancel that and that, start working on that. We're going to cycle through hellbores first because they're the siege weapons that we'll rely on. Phasers for the backup, the Gatling phaser because that's nice to have, and then the fusion cannons are last because they're not important at all for what we're about to do. We would, however, like all of our 62 points of power back because it's kind of important.
Stabilizing warp core.
So as long as we can, well, we've got a full complement of resupply of spare parts, so we should be able to fix the ship without too much trouble. But that was a pretty rough fight right there. A heavy dreadnought followed by a BCX. That BCX was able to focus on us quite heavily. The Merak vessels, only mediocrely effective. To be fair, the initial volleys that got that dreadnought to stop were very, very effective, very useful to us. Unfortunately, they didn't appear to do a whole heck of a lot to the heavy cruiser follow-up. But I suppose you take some, you lose some. It would have been nice if they had been able to give us a little bit more coverage against that battlecruiser, but at the end of the day, we're the ones who had to make things happen, and we did. So victory was indeed ours. So we are moving quite slowly towards the planet, mainly because I'd like to get most of the ship fixed before we actually reach the planet, and there's a lot of things to fix. One of our hellbores is about to come back online, so we'll have 2 to shoot at the enemy, but that's only half our standard siege complement. We're not exactly well festooned with heavy long-range weaponry. That'll be something we'll get with the Monarch battleship carrier, because we'll pick up 2 more hellbore cannons, which will be really nice on the actual offense. But until that happens, we're kind of stuck with what we've got. Yeah, the repair times on hellbores are absolutely ridiculous. Fill it in with another fusion cannon, which is desperately going to require repairs. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we're really going to need sacrifice all of this. Transporters back, because transporters are essential to actually sieging and winning the enemy. So we are in range of the hellbore, so open fire. We got 2 of them, we may as well use them. And we do, of course, have to prevent the enemy from being able to use their electronic countermeasure and shut that down so we can be hyper-accurate on every single shot that we make. That's the goal anyway. We know that we can hit a range of about 15 and pretty easily shoot at the enemy and take all of their damage. Or was that a... Ooh, that may have been an asteroid base. So we're going to have to be a little bit careful about what's going on. Start to slow down a little bit, defend ourselves as best as possible. Shields are recovering quite nicely so far. So almost got that hellbore ready to go. It'll be ready very shortly, and then we'll have all 4 hellbores of our siege complement ready to work. Also, we'll be able to add in even more things that are broken, like this fusion cannon, There's quite a few of those fusion cannons which are very much broken. Open fire! So just within range, we can start shelling and laying into the enemy and having a good grand old time. Eventually, we'll knock down all his shields. Eventually. And when that happens, we can rejoice, because then we'll actually be able to get onto the planet, we'll beam people over, victory will be ours, and it'll be nice and easy. Wow, looks like those transporters are already patched. Good job engineering. Very proud of you. You're doing an excellent job. And we'll fix up the last of that. So that should be everything important in the queue. Obviously not the tractor beam. It's not an incredibly important system. It's one that we just so happen to be working on. Well, we probably actually won't, but let it get fixed in between traveling. Continue the barrage. We're not getting through yet, but we're working on it. Eventually, the enemy shall have a hole in his shields that we can exploit. And it's going to be gorgeous, but it's going to take a little while. Continue to blast away with the Hellbores. I wish there was a slightly faster speed setting that we could go to. We got almost 40 points of power on the forward shield. That's pretty good. I mean, it's not invincible. He can still cut through us if he manages to hit with all of his Hellbore, or all of his phaser 4s. But it's nice to have. And getting a little bit closer could be, well, helpful to our Hellbore accuracy. Really, we need to get to a distance of about 8, I think, in order for our Hellbores to get to the next stage of accuracy, where they will deal even more damage. But that's probably not going to be a safe distance to be away from the enemy. Although he hasn't been focusing on us with nearly as much firepower as I had assumed that he would. Just the occasional Disruptor Bolt and, you know, on occasion phasers. But other than that, he seems to be mostly ignoring us, which I'm perfectly happy to let him do. I mean, it's not like I can force him to do other things. That'd be interesting if you could actually taunt planets into shooting only you and not your defenders. It'd also be interesting if you could get your friendly ships to get a little bit closer. But they are very defensive in nature. Their AI is designed to protect them from smashing into planets, mainly in case they got a little bit lost. Although it would be nice if we could actually get them to be a little bit more effective. Medium cruisers, what are you exactly equipped with? 6 missile launchers, 4 AMD, oh no, 8 missile launchers. That's pretty impressive, actually, for a ship so small, because you look to be a light cruiser like vessel. As long as you're not a heavy cruiser, even a heavy cruiser, really, 8 missile launchers is not terrible at all. I mean, the drone heavy cruiser for the Marak, the first one they get, the CD, that only has 6 missile launchers. And he backs that up with pretty much the same thing that the Marak drone cruiser has, and that's the 2 phaser X's. And he, I think, is a little, no, the 4, yeah, he's got the same rear armament. So basically they took the standard CD and then they added in an additional double missile launcher. That's not terrible at all. You give him actual decent missiles and he'll probably do some serious damage to somebody. Oh, looks like we're through the shield. We've done 3 damage to them already. So we have finally managed to find a hole where we can just continue to blast into them. That means that the rest of their shields will eventually collapse, hopefully. Maybe not, actually. We'll focus on the one hole that we have. It would be nice if they went around to the area of the shields that was not there to continue their effective fire, but I suppose we have to work with what we've got. Although, why are you not shooting back? That's the thing I don't really understand. They're being very, well, short-sighted with all the weapons that they could fire and don't appear to be. Although I suppose they have been splitting their fire on the MDCs. So, it's a pretty bad use of their firepower, considering we're the only ones who can really kill them. But at the same time, even if they were to focus all their weapons on us, they probably couldn't cut through our shield reinforcement. We're looking at a shield reinforcement of 31. You add that to our normal shields, we've got a one-time defense of like, I want to say 62, but I'm not positive on that. So we could take quite a bit of fire at least once before we go through. Heck, we could take 31 points of power without actually losing anything. Although at the same time, I do believe that means that a Federation on proximity photon torpedo mode could actually probably cut through us if he hit with every single weapon. Because he's got 32 points of damage that he could deal. So he'd deal 1 point of damage to the actual shield proper. The question would be, would those shields recover before he had another shot? It does take a Federation ship 2 turns to actually shoot back. So that would be interesting to find out. And it looks like somebody managed to actually get a phaser on target, because that went from 4 to 5, which indicated his secondary weapon was actually shooting as well. So we're starting to cause a little bit of damage here. Yes, there they go. They're starting to move around to the side of the planet and hitting the unshielded side right there. So that's where all the damage has been focusing itself on. So lucky for us, that'll work out quite nicely. How did our Hellbores get so desynced from each other? I know why half of the Hellbores are desynced from a... Oh, wrong camera. That's the camera. I know why half of the Hellbores are desynced because they came back online at different times, but I'm not quite sure how this mount got totally desynced. I must have missed a click somewhere along here. Ah, planets. You are such a pain to actually take down. It can be easy with the right Empire, especially if you play the plasma races. They can just knife through a planet's shields in no time at all. Romulans especially. You can successfully do a Romulan planetary invasion with... I was about to say a frigate, but the frigate might lack the transporters. Any ship that has 3 transporters, the Romulans can do a planetary invasion with, no matter how small. As long as it's got a plasma torpedo and a cloaking device, it'll do it. And the reason for that is the plasma torpedo does enough damage to cut through the shield reinforcement. 2 of them will guarantee it. And the 3 transporters will ensure that eventually, after you do enough damage to the planet, you can beam over more than their 2 single Marine teams can handle. So any real Romulan ship with 3 transporters and 2 plasma F torpedoes and a cloaking device will handle the entire thing. Have you lost even more shields? That's interesting, the fact that you're no longer prioritizing me as defense. But then again, we are firing a weapon that doesn't care about defense. So, and actually, you could probably actually pull that off with fewer than 2 tractor or transporters as well, because all you need to do is get lucky once and have your boarding team knock out one of their defensive boarding teams. Because if you can do that, then you can just continually beam over. So enough Marines plus a single transporter could do it. Although it would be safer with 3. But I definitely remember we during our Romulan campaign started doing planetary assaults very, very early compared to what we would do in most other campaigns. A heavy cruiser is about the minimum that you would want to use for most other races. Even the Federation, a heavy cruiser will eventually cut through all these shields, as we are struggling to do with only our 4 Hellbores. But it would take even longer with the Federation ship. It's kind of nuts. Although we're doing about the same amount of damage, but we've already penetrated the shields, and a Federation heavy cruiser wouldn't. Just be a little bit risky. Nothing too dangerous, but a little bit. So a Federation heavy cruiser is one of the more painful ones. Klingon heavy cruisers also pretty painful because disruptors are not great planetary siege weapons. The reinforcement comes back before the disruptor is recharged, so it's not like you get a cumulative effect. You deal a lot of continuous damage, but you don't deal a lot of damage enough to blast through the reinforcement. It can be rather difficult. And so on the one hand, I'm actually not looking forward to the Klingon campaign because of that. The Marat campaign, we can kind of get around it simply because, well, in the Marat campaign, you have just a blistering array of missiles. We were sending, I think it was 116 missile salvos at times towards planets, and they just simply couldn't cope with that. The Lyrans, we would get right up on top of them with a Mauler, I think it was, and we just blast them like that. I actually don't really remember a whole heck of a lot of planetary assaults with the Lyrans, which is probably a good thing. That would also be pretty painful. At least the Klingons bring missile launchers as backup. Although you would need enough missile launchers to get past their tractor beams, because their tractor beams, they've got a lot of them. It makes it a little bit more difficult. Oh, looks like we're causing quite a bit of damage to a lot of the defensive systems. Yeah, his Phaser 4s are still fully intact, but his disruptors are dropping. His Phaser 3s are gone for the most part. Not entirely. But as long as he's continued to waste repair parts on those Phaser 3s, he won't have them once we start knocking out Phaser 4s. And that'll be the best circumstance, because then we'll really start to be able to accelerate the pace at which we destroy our enemies. We may as well. We'll fix the last... We'll fix our tractor beam just so that the entire ship is repaired. No sense in having all the people just hanging around, not doing anything. Ooh, that dropped considerably. Okay, he's lost one of his Phaser 4s. That's it? That's what caused it to drop to half? Let's start getting in a little bit closer. If we get in close enough, we might be able to start engaging with all our heavy weapons. Well, the heaviest damage-dealing weapons, and that's our overloaded fusion cannons. This has not been the most fast-paced episode, unfortunately. It's kind of disappointing. I enjoy patrols a heck of a lot more, probably because of that. Because patrols are just straight-up dogfight matches. You get to get in there, you against another ship, you're maneuvering, you're ducking and diving through. So if you're new to the channel, go check out one of those videos. This would not be a great introduction video to Starfleet Command. It's simply a bit too slow. We're getting awfully close, but I'm going to allow it. Because the closer we get, the more powerful our fusion cannons can get, and that'll allow us to basically annihilate the enemy in as few shots as possible. So a distance of 2, I'd like to get closer, but I'm starting to get kind of concerned. I'm not quite sure how big this ship is. You know what, I'm going to stop right here. Speed 0, all of them select, engage. Hey, there went his shields, and 92 damage immediately. How many Marines you got left? You got 7. Yeah, you're not going to be here much longer. 6, we can take out 3 more because we're at 5. 3, one more team. There we go, send over the Marines. Okay, Marine boarding teams have been sent to the planet where they will attempt to secure all the important locations and hold the planet for us. Will this actually take the tile? No, consider this a lightning raid, that we are striking primary important targets for a future invasion. Or perhaps we're taking one of the outer planets in the system. You never quite know. I mean, you could say that's a bit of a cratered moon. So on speed of time, something back to a little bit more natural that people can actually handle. Wow, 19 minutes and 6 seconds. That has been one of the longest planetary assaults we've done in during this season. Not during all our campaigns. We've done some really long ones before. But 670 prestige is a reward. Took quite a bit of damage thanks to that BCX. We will stop back home. Hi, shipyard, are you going to soothe my pains from having to fight that long battle by giving me a Monarch-class battleship carrier? You tease me. You tease me with the standard Monarch-class battleship. It has 2 more Hellbores, but unfortunately it has 8 less fighters, and the fighters are absurdly powerful. It's almost tempting to buy it because we can buy a times 2, do 24 plus an additional 2,000. Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna sell it the moment a Monarch-class battleship carrier comes up, but we've got enough at this point. We have 16,260 prestige. That is guaranteed to be enough to get ourselves a Monarch-class battleship carrier when it shows up. But until then, we're going to rock and roll in a Monarch. It's the standard battleship. It's not the battleship carrier. It doesn't have quite as many cool things, mainly fewer fighters. I mean, look at this. 12. What is this tininess? Where are the 20 or more fighters that we could get if we had the battleship carrier? Not here, that's where. And we'll top... Well, not top... yeah, we can top off. We'll have enough prestige, no doubt. And if worse comes to worse, we can sell this ship. We will be selling the ship when we get the battleship carrier. I mean, that's already guaranteed. But we're going to step it up into the full-on Monarch up until the point where we can actually get that. Although there has been some thought about getting a XCB, a heavy bombardment cruiser. But anyway, that's actually going to do it for today's episode. A little bit less action-packed, only 1 mission this time because of how long it took. But hopefully, getting this ship will reduce the amount of time we spend during these actual battles. And if worse comes to worse, I may actually end up getting an XCB just to make the siege battles a little bit faster. Anyway, I've been Tarek. If you like what you've been seeing, hit that like button and subscribe. Before I receive a notification every time I post one of these videos, press that little bell icon. Leave a comment that I will see you all in the next episode.